I want you to imagine two people standing at the exact same starting line. Same age, same town, same empty bank account, same list of dreams they've never told anyone. And you'd swear, looking at them, that life is about to hand them identical futures. But 5 years from now, one of them has everything they wrote down on a napkin, and the other one is still holding the napkin, still waiting, still explaining to anyone who'll listen why the timing was never right. Nothing on the outside separated them. What separated them was something almost nobody talks about honestly. And by the end of the next few minutes, you're going to know exactly what it was, and whether you've been living on the wrong side of that line without realizing it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Wanting something has almost nothing to do with getting it. If wanting worked, everyone would already be living the life they daydream about on the drive home. You've wanted things desperately before. You've lain awake aching for them, and you're still waiting on some of them right now. So clearly desire isn't the currency that buys the life you're after. Something else is. And every day you don't understand what that something is, you pay for it, in years you can't get back, in a version of yourself that stays smaller than it needs to be. Think of your life as a garden. Not a warehouse where you place an order and wait for delivery. A garden. Because a garden doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you tend. And once you understand that difference, everything about how you chase what you want begins to change. Let me show you exactly how, one piece at a time. 1. Get painfully clear on what you actually want, not what you're supposed to want. There was a man who spent 12 years climbing toward a promotion he was certain would fix his life. He gave up weekends. He missed his kids' games. He swallowed things at work that ate at him quietly for years. And the day he finally got the title, he sat in his car in the parking lot and felt nothing. Not joy, not relief. A strange, hollow silence. Because in the quiet of that car he realized the goal had never been his. It belonged to his father. To an old version of himself he'd never bothered to question. He'd climbed the whole ladder only to find it was leaning against the wrong wall. You know this struggle even if you won't admit it. You've chased things because they looked impressive, because someone would be proud, because everyone around you seemed to want them too. And you've hit targets that gave you nothing, and wondered why the finish line felt so empty. Here's why most people never get what they want. They never actually decide what it is. They carry around a blurry cloud of more money, more success, more respect, and a cloud can't be pursued. You can't take a single real step toward a fog. So they stay busy, exhausted, and strangely unfulfilled, working hard for a target they never clearly named. So do this today. Take 10 quiet minutes and finish one sentence on paper. If nothing were watching and no one would judge me, the life I actually want looks like. Write until it gets honest. Then read it back and ask of each piece, is this mine, or did I inherit it? Cross out everything that belongs to someone else. What's left is your real target. And a target you can name is a target you can hit. Vague wanting becomes a clear target. A clear target becomes a plan. But knowing what you want is only the first door. Because there's a reason you already know some of your goals and still haven't moved, and that reason is what we uncover next. 2. Stop waiting to feel ready, because ready is a lie you tell yourself to stay comfortable. Continue for the full 9 points in this style. Point 2. Stop waiting to feel ready, because ready is a lie you tell yourself to stay comfortable. There was a woman who kept a business plan in a drawer for 6 years. 6 years. She'd take it out, read it, tweak a line, feel a flicker of excitement, then put it back, always with the same quiet promise: when things settle down, when I have more savings, when I feel more sure. Then one afternoon she got laid off from the job she thought was permanent, and within a month she'd launched the exact business she'd been protecting from herself for 6 years. When someone asked what finally changed, she said something that stuck with everyone in the room. She said she didn't get braver, she just ran out of excuses. The readiness she'd been waiting for had never been coming. It only showed up after she moved. You know this waiting. You stood at the edge of something that mattered, heart-pounding, and told yourself you just needed a little more time, a little more information, a little more certainty. And that little more quietly stretched into months, then years. You weren't being careful. You were being comfortable, and calling it caution. Here's why most people never move. They've got the equation backwards. They believe confidence comes first, and then action follows. So they sit there waiting to feel ready, not realizing that feeling is manufactured by the very thing they're refusing to do. Confidence isn't the fuel that starts the car. It's the exhaust the engine produces once it's already running. You don't think your way into becoming a person who acts. You act your way into becoming a person who's confident. So here's what you do today. Take the goal you named yesterday and shrink it down to something almost embarrassingly small, so small your brain can't manufacture a reason to avoid it. Not start the business. Send one email. Not get in shape. Put your shoes by the door. Researchers who study procrastination found something powerful. When you decide in advance exactly what you'll do and precisely when and where you'll do it, I will do X at this time in this place, you become dramatically more likely to follow through. So don't just pick the tiny action. Anchor it to a moment. Tomorrow, 7 a.m., at the kitchen table, I open the document. That's it. That's the whole revolution. Because momentum doesn't arrive before you move. Momentum is the reward for moving. Readiness becomes a myth. Motion becomes the medicine. And once you take that first small step, You'll run into the wall that stops nearly everyone, the invisible force that makes people quit the moment things stop feeling good. That's what we face next. 3. Fall in love with the boring middle, because that's where everything you want is actually built. Let me tell you about a man learning to play guitar. The first 2 weeks, he practiced every night. His fingertips hurt, but he loved it. He could feel himself improving, chord by chord. Then week 3 came, and something cruel happened. He stopped improving. Every night sounded like the night before. The dramatic early progress flattened into a long, gray plateau where nothing seemed to move. And this is the exact moment most people put the guitar back in the closet forever. But he didn't. He kept showing up to the boredom, kept practicing the same fundamentals when it felt like nothing was happening. And one day, months later, a song just fell out of his hands, clean, easy, natural. The skill had been forming the entire time, underground, in all those nights that felt like failure. You know this plateau intimately. The beginning of anything is exciting because progress is visible and fast. But then you hit the flat stretch, the diet where the scale stops moving, the side project where nobody's noticed yet, the skill that refuses to improve no matter how hard you try. And that flatness feels like a verdict. It whispers that you're not cut out for this, that it isn't working, that you should quit while you can still save face. Here's why most people lose. They're addicted to visible progress, so they mistake the plateau for a wall. But the plateau isn't a wall, it's the hallway. It's where the actual transformation happens, quietly, beneath a surface that looks completely still. The people who get what they want aren't the ones who felt motivated the longest. They're the ones who kept working when the feedback disappeared. They fell in love with the process itself, so they didn't need the scoreboard to move to keep playing. So here's your move today. Stop measuring yourself by results, and start measuring yourself by reps. Results are slow, unfair, and outside your control on any given day. But reps you own completely. Instead of "did I lose weight?" ask "did I show up?" Instead of "is it working yet?" ask "did I do the work today?" Build one small daily action you can complete no matter what, and put a mark on a calendar every time you do it. That growing chain of marks becomes proof evidence that you're becoming someone who keeps promises to themselves, whether or not the world has noticed yet. Because here's the secret the impatient never learn. Roots grow in the dark. Character grows in the boring. The plateau isn't where dreams go to die, it's where they're quietly being forged. The scoreboard becomes silent. The work becomes sacred. But there's a force even stronger than boredom waiting to knock you off course, and it doesn't come from inside you. It comes from the people around you. That's what we take on next. 4. Choose your circle on purpose, because you're slowly becoming the average of the people you spend time with. There was a young man who wanted, more than anything, to build something of his own. But every Friday night he sat in the same booth with the same 4 friends who did nothing but complain about their bosses, their exes, the economy, the unfairness of it all. He loved them. They'd grown up together. But every time he shared a new idea, one of them would smirk and say something like, "Who do you think you are?" And slowly, without noticing, he stopped sharing ideas. Then he stopped having them. It wasn't until he took a job in another city away from that booth that his mind started generating dreams again, like a plant finally moved into the light. The people hadn't been evil. They'd just been a ceiling. And he'd mistaken the ceiling for the sky. You know this pull. There are people in your life who deflate you a little every time you leave them, and people who leave you feeling like more is possible. And the hard, quiet truth is that some of the ones who love you most are also the ones most invested, without even realizing it, in you staying exactly the way you've always been. Your growth threatens the comfortable picture they have of the group. Your change forces them to look at their own. Here's why most people stay stuck. They believe loyalty means staying the same, so they let their environment be chosen by accident, by geography, by history, by who happen to be around. Emotions and standards spread from person to person like a current you can't see. Sit in a room of people who expect little, and your own expectations quietly shrink to match. Nobody decides to be dragged down. It happens in 1,000 ordinary conversations, one shrug at a time. So here's your action today. Take an honest inventory. Think through the people you spend the most time with, and for each one ask a single question. After I'm with this person, do I feel bigger or smaller? You're not firing anyone. You're just becoming conscious. Then make one deliberate addition. Find one person, one podcast, one community, one voice that operates at the level you're reaching for, and start putting them into your week on purpose. You rise toward the standards you're surrounded by. So surround yourself, deliberately, with people who make your dreams feel normal instead of foolish. Because your environment is always voting on who you'll become. The only question is whether you chose the voters. Your circle becomes your ceiling, or your circle becomes your launchpad. But even with the right people around you, there's a battle no one else can fight for you, the war between what you want later and what you crave right now. That's where we go next. 5. Master the war between now and later, because your entire future is decided in tiny moments of craving. There was a student who wanted to become a doctor more than she'd ever wanted anything. She could describe the future in vivid detail, the white coat, the moment she'd tell her mother, the first patient she'd help. But every night, sitting at her desk with the textbook open, a smaller, louder voice would offer her a trade. Just one episode. Just 30 minutes on your phone. You've earned a break. And night after night, she took the trade. Not because she was lazy, she was one of the most driven people her friends knew, but because in that exact moment, the reward that was 5 years away simply couldn't compete with the reward that was 5 seconds away. She didn't fail because she lacked the dream. She failed because she kept losing a war she didn't even know she was fighting. The night she started winning was the night she stopped relying on willpower and started removing the trade from the table entirely. Phone in another room. Textbook already open, decision already made before the craving could speak. You know this war. You've wanted the big thing with your whole heart, and still handed it away in a moment of comfort so small you barely notice. The snooze button, the scroll, the "I'll start Monday." None of them feel like a decision. That's exactly why they're so dangerous. The future you want is never destroyed in one dramatic act. It's traded away in 1,000 quiet moments that each seemed too small to matter. Here's why most people lose. They think this is a battle of willpower, and they blame themselves when they cave, as if wanting it badly enough should be sufficient. But willpower is a muscle, and muscles get tired. By the end of a long day, the part of your brain that resists temptation is exhausted, while the part that craves comfort is wide awake. If your whole plan rests on outmuscling temptation in the moment, you will lose, over and over, and then you'll call yourself weak for losing a fight that was rigged from the start. So here's what you do today. Stop fighting temptation in the moment and start defeating it in advance. Design your environment so the right choice is easy and the wrong choice is a hassle. If you scroll in bed, charge the phone in the kitchen. If you skip workouts, sleep in your gym clothes. If junk food derails you, don't keep it in the house. You can't eat what you have to drive to buy. You are not weak. You've just been relying on discipline where design would have done the work for you. Willpower fails at midnight. Systems don't get tired because you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of the environment you built while no one was watching. Craving becomes quieter. Design becomes your discipline. But there's something that sabotages more dreams than temptation ever could. A fear so common that most people never even recognize it as the thing that's stopping them. That's what we uncover next. 6. Make peace with failing publicly, because the fear of looking foolish is quietly running your life. Let me tell you about a man who wanted to be a writer for 20 years and never showed anyone a single word. He wrote, filled notebooks, drafted stories, started novels. But every piece went into a drawer, because the moment he imagined someone reading it and not liking it, something in his chest locked up. He told himself he was waiting until the work was good enough. But the work was never going to be good enough, because the only thing that makes writing better is other people reading it and telling you the truth. He'd built himself a perfect prison. He protected his dreams so carefully from judgment that he also protected it from ever growing. The day he finally posted one small piece online, hands shaking, certain he'd be humiliated, a stranger commented that it had helped them. One comment, and 20 years of fear cracked open in a single afternoon. You know this fear, even if you've never named it. It's why you don't raise your hand, why you don't post the thing, pitch the idea, ask the question, apply for the role you're not qualified for. Underneath 100 different excuses is one quiet, ancient dread. What if I try, and people see me fail? So you stay small and safe, and you call it being realistic. Here's why most people never break through. They believe that if they can just avoid failure, they'll avoid the pain of it. But the opposite is true. The judgment you're afraid of is happening anyway. People judge you when you try and people judge you when you don't. The only difference is that trying gives you a shot at the life you want, while hiding guarantees you stay exactly where you are. You're not avoiding risk by playing it safe. You're just choosing the slow, quiet risk of a life not lived over the loud, fast risk of one honest attempt. So here's your move today. Do one thing that could visibly not work. Send the message. Share the draft. Ask for the thing. Make it small enough to survive but real enough to scare you a little. And before you do, tell yourself the truth. The worst realistic outcome isn't humiliation, it's a shrug, a no, a moment of awkwardness that everyone forgets by dinner. You have wildly overestimated how much other people are watching, and how long they'll remember. Most of them are too busy worrying about their own audience to be your audience. Because every remarkable person you admire was, at some point, a beginner doing something badly in public and choosing to continue anyway. Judgment becomes background noise. Courage becomes a habit. But even courage has a hidden enemy, one that disguises itself as a virtue and convinces smart people to wait forever. That's what we expose next. 7. Kill the perfect plan, because perfectionism is just fear wearing a nicer outfit. There were two people who wanted to open a bakery. The first spent 2 years perfecting everything: the logo, the business plan, the branded napkins, the ideal location, the imagined menu revised 100 times. Everything had to be flawless before she'd risk opening the doors. The second baked bread in her tiny apartment kitchen and sold it to her neighbors that same month. It was imperfect. The packaging was plain. She made mistakes constantly. But every sale taught her something the first woman could only guess at: which flavors people came back for, what they'd actually pay, how much she could bake in a morning. 2 years later, the second woman had a real bakery, built on 1,000 tiny corrections from real customers. The first woman still had a beautiful plan and an empty storefront in her imagination. Perfect had lost to start it. It almost always does. You know this trap, because it feels so responsible from the inside. You research instead of act. You plan and replan. You tell yourself you're just being thorough, just getting it right, just waiting until you have everything figured out. And the months slide by, and the endless preparing feels productive, but nothing has actually happened. You've been running in place and calling it a warm-up. Here's why most people never launch. They believe the plan needs to be complete before the first step, so they keep polishing a strategy they'll never test. But you cannot plan your way to certainty about something you've never done. The map only becomes accurate once you start walking the territory. Every business, every skill, every relationship reveals its real terrain only to people who've already begun. Perfectionism isn't high standards. It's fear that has learned to sound intelligent, fear that whispers, not yet, until not yet quietly becomes never. So here's what you do today. Set a deadline that's uncomfortably soon and ship something imperfect before it arrives. Not the whole dream, the smallest real version of it. If you want to write, publish one rough page. If you want to sell, make one clumsy offer. If you want to teach, record one imperfect video. Aim for done, not flawless, and let the feedback from reality do what daydreaming never could: show you exactly what to fix next. You'll learn more from one imperfect attempt than from 100 perfect plans, because a mediocre plan you actually execute will always beat a brilliant plan that stays in your head. Perfect becomes the enemy. Progress becomes the goal. But there's one more mental trap deeper than perfectionism, a lie about who you fundamentally are that quietly caps everything you'll ever attempt. That's what we confront next. 8. Rewrite the story you tell about yourself, because you will never outperform your own identity. There was a man who said, constantly, almost proudly, "I'm just not a disciplined person." He said it as a joke, as an apology, as an explanation. And every time he said it, something quiet happened. His brain went looking for evidence to prove it true. He'd skip the gym and think, see, that's just who I am. He'd abandon a goal and shrug, no surprise, I never finish anything. He was living down to a label he'd hung on himself years ago and never questioned. Until a mentor asked him one strange question: who decided that about you? And what would you do differently tomorrow if it simply weren't true? He didn't have an answer. So the next morning, for the first time, he did one small discipline thing, just to see. And then another. Not to become disciplined, but to test whether the story was even real. Within a few months, he caught himself saying something he'd never said before: I'm the kind of person who shows up. The behavior hadn't just changed his results, it had rewritten who he believed he was. You know this quiet prison. You've introduced yourself, out loud or in your own head, with your limitations. I'm bad with money. I'm not a people person. I always self-sabotage. I'm just not creative. And each of those sentences isn't a description, it's an instruction. Your mind treats it as a command and dutifully arranges your behavior to match, because human beings are desperate to be consistent with the story they've claimed about themselves. Here's why most people stay stuck forever. They try to change their actions while keeping the same identity, so every new habit becomes a fight against who they believe they are. Willpower against identity is a war willpower always loses. The person who believes I'm a smoker trying to quit struggles endlessly, while the person who decides I'm not a smoker simply declines. Behavior follows belief. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your sense of who you are. And if that self-image is small, no amount of trying will lift a life above the ceiling of the story running underneath it. So here's your move today. Catch one limiting sentence you say about yourself and put it on trial. Write it down, then ask, is this a fact, or just a story I've repeated so long it feels like one? Then choose the new identity you want, not the outcome, the identity, and take one tiny action that a person with that identity would take. Don't wait to feel like that person. Cast the vote first. Every small action is a ballot for the kind of person you're becoming. An identity is built from the accumulated evidence of what you repeatedly do. Because you can't consistently behave in a way that contradicts who you believe you are, so change the belief, and the behavior finally has permission to follow. The old story becomes optional. The new identity becomes real. But knowing all of this changes nothing without one final ingredient: the quiet quality that separates the people who get what they want from the people who merely understood how. That's the last piece, and it ties everything together. 9. Outlast the moment you most want to quit, because persistence is the one advantage nobody can take from you. Let me tell you about a woman who applied for the same kind of role 48 times. 48 rejections. Some were silent, some were polite, a few were cruel. Every single one of them offered her a perfectly reasonable excuse to stop, to conclude that this wasn't meant for her, that the door was closed. Her friends gently suggested she try something more realistic, and there were nights she believed them. But something in her had decided that a no was just information, not a verdict, that each rejection was subtracting one more wrong door from a finite number of doors. On the 49th try, she got the yes. And here's the part that haunts everyone who hears it: she was never more talented on the 49th attempt than the first. The only thing that changed was that she was still there. Everyone else with her exact dream had already gone home. You know this moment. The point where effort has been poured in and nothing has come out. where the gap between how hard you're working and how little you're seeing feels unbearable. That's the moment the voice gets loud, the one that says you gave it a fair shot, that it's okay to stop, that quitting now would be wise rather than weak. And that voice is most convincing precisely when you're closest, because the final stretch always feels the most hopeless. Here's why most people never get what they want. They quit not when they've failed, but when they're tired, and those are completely different things. Failure is being genuinely out of options. Tired is being out of patience while the options are still there. Most dreams aren't defeated by a wall. They're abandoned a few feet from a breakthrough that was never visible from where the person was standing. The ones who make it aren't the most gifted. They're the ones who were still knocking after everyone else assumed the house was empty. So here's your final action today. Decide, in advance, what your one more will be. Not endless suffering, one more concrete attempt past the point you'd normally stop. One more application, one more conversation, one more month. Write it down while you're strong, so the tired version of you tomorrow has a promise to honor instead of a mood to obey. And when the urge to quit comes, and it will, don't make the decision in the dark of that low moment. Just do the one more thing you already promised, and let tomorrow's clearer mind decide the rest. Because the finish line is invisible. You never know if you're 3 steps away or 300, which means quitting is the only choice that guarantees you never find out. Rejection becomes redirection. Exhaustion becomes the final test. And that's where all 9 of these truths finally converge into the one idea beneath them all. Here's the thing you may have started to feel as we move through all of this. None of these were really about tactics. Getting clear, starting before you're ready, loving the boring middle, choosing your circle, winning the war of the moment, failing in public, killing the perfect plan, rewriting your story, outlasting the urge to quit. Every single one comes back to the same quiet, staggering truth. You do not get what you want from life. You get what you become. That's the whole secret. The life you're reaching for isn't a prize the world hands to the person who wants it most. It's a harvest the world hands to the person who became the kind of gardener who could grow it. The tree doesn't produce fruit because it demanded fruit. It produces fruit because of what's happening in the roots, in the dark, in the seasons nobody applauds. Opportunity isn't attracted to your wanting. It's attracted to who you've quietly turned yourself into while nobody was watching. So let's bring it home. Get painfully clear on what's actually yours. Move before you feel ready, because motion creates the confidence. Fall in love with the boring middle, because that's where it's built. Choose your circle on purpose. Win the small wars of craving with design, not willpower. Fail in public and survive the shrug. Kill the perfect plan and ship the imperfect thing. Rewrite the story you tell about who you are. And when everything in you begs to quit, do one more. Here's your one call to action, and it's smaller than you'd expect. Tonight, before you sleep, pick just one of these 9 and choose the single tiny action you'll take tomorrow. The email, the shoes by the door, the rough page, the sentence put on trial. Not all 9. 1. Because a single small step taken is worth more than 9 perfect intentions you sleep on. Understand this, and let it settle deep. 1 year from now, you will meet a person. It'll be you, but a version shaped by every choice you make starting tomorrow morning. That person is either going to thank you for the day you finally began, or quietly wish you had. Which one they become isn't up to luck, timing, the economy, or anyone else. It's being decided right now, in what you do with what you just heard. Your future isn't something you're waiting to receive. It's something you're building, choice by invisible choice, starting today. So don't wait for the life you want to arrive. Become the person it belongs to, and then go and live it.